one without the other. So I am just honored that the Nuwaubian family is here today. Unfortunately, it is a solemn day in regards to the energy of this area, because one of our young black brothers was murdered a couple of weeks ago in Sanford, Florida, about 2 hours away. And so there are numerous people that would have been here that have called and are giving their support and love, but have decided to drop their commitment and be in Sanford. We are planning to pilgrimage there on Monday. If any of you are able to stay and go, we'll be there in front of City Hall with Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton and Martin Luther King III and those type of people. So feel free. My casa is su casa. I'm going to open up the porta potties for those who need to use the restroom, as well as the sisters who may want to walk with me to my home to freshen up and change and that type of thing. And we'll get the day started. The tour bus will be here shortly. Again, we're going to be taking tours of Black American Beach, looking at some of the land that is there and looking at what is left for us to save. It's an amazing, amazing place. It really, really is. Also, we'll be taking tours of the A.L. Lewis Mausoleum, as well as my home, which was lived in by Marcus Messiah Garvey during the UNIA movement, and Mother Laura Odoko Kofi, who came from Ghana in 1924 and who was assassinated in the pulpit March 8, 1928, for being a woman and speaking about repatriation. She's buried here in Jacksonville, Florida, at the Old City Cemetery. And actually, the Lewises and all those who purchased the land at American Beach were Coffeeites. So they were her children and her followers. She left diamonds and she left gold, and she left the heritage for people to love their blackness. And she instilled that in this particular community, which is why so many people in this community own their own businesses. They own from storefronts to clubs to they lay pipes, or they do construction, or they do printing. And literally about 75% of the people in this community own some kind of business. And that came from the seeds that she planted over 50 years ago. And so the tours will be really, really educational. You're not required to go on them, but I would advise that at least someone from the Nuwaubian family would go and learn and share with the others, while the others perhaps set up the booths or whatever you want to decide to do in regards to that. We'll be back here about 12 o'clock, 12:30 to get the marketplace going, and then the event will end around 7. There's a slew of guest speakers that'll be on the stage speaking today about health and nutrition, about so many different topics.
So it's about that freedom of our people and giving them back their culture. And that's one of the jobs that our master teacher left us with. He left us with the information that can transform us out of the condition that we're in back into the gods and goddesses, or the Naturu that we really are.
Hallelujah.
And he said that we have to go out and save our race.
You have the black magician coming from Gainesville, Mr. B Magic.
Yes.
Like David
his lodge, which is the Nuwaubian Grand Lodge. We have our AO office here, United Nuwapians Worldwide, our sisters. That's on the phone, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, me and my wife. He's given us to transform us back into the gods that we were, save our people, and educate them on things that have been slipped up on the rug and put out. Give them nothing but facts.
And I'm just so filled, because unfortunately I found out about Dr. Malachi Z. York shortly after, I'm just real frank, shortly after the BS. And I was really outraged, because had I known, I would have packed up from California and pilgrimage. We would be family already. Family, real family already. And so since I found out about the movement, I have studied and have numerous books and numerous information pamphlets, and have sent in my papers to be part of the ancient Egyptian order, and never got any contact back. And I've called numbers that don't exist, and I've sent letters to addresses that no longer exist. And I've just continued to search. And you know, it says seek and ye shall find. So when I stumbled upon these brothers in 5 Points, simply because I had got a ticket for driving without my seatbelt in 5 Points, I just pulled out. Didn't even get a chance to put my seatbelt on.
You supposed to got that.
All right.
All right, let's make it happen. Let's do this.
How are you doing, driver?
All right now, I want to tell you, I'm going to start off by saying I am so honored that you all have joined us today on this historical event. We are priming. We are yet priming, and for anyone who knows anything about farming or anything about well water, you have to prime. And when you prime, sometimes your arms are tired. It seems like the water is never gonna come, and you just keep pumping and pumping. But if you stop, the water goes all the way down, and you have to start all over again. But if you keep priming and you keep priming, eventually that water will burst so wide and long, you just got to step out of the way, because water will come and it will flood. You have so much water you won't know what to do. So we are priming right now, yet priming, and I appreciate you all being here in this priming mode as we bring in the spring at our first inaugural celebration. This is the first of many to come, and you all are pioneers in this thing, so peace and love. Thank you so much. WACPtv in the house. All right. We were gonna make a pilgrimage out to Black American Beach, but due to the timing and the fact that as the coordinator of this thing, I think I need to be here because the stage and bleachers are late. Even the city is late today. So I think we'll maybe hold that off. We are gonna do a tour and get some things going. All right.
All right.
All right. Pool, my family. Now, this home was resided by the president and his family, and they welcomed Marcus Garvey and Princess Laura Adoko Kofi, who had come from Ghana, West Africa in 1924 during the repatriation movement. This entire street was UNIA, the entire street. The trolley used to come right here, which is why the street is a little bit wider. It used to turn around right there and go back into town. This was a very happening, busy street. Marcus Garvey toured this street and paraded this street numerous times. He loved coming to this neighborhood because the people were progressive. Most of them owned their own businesses. They were fishermen, they were longshoremen, they knew their way around waters. And so we're going to have her pull over. We're going to walk on the grounds and just feel a little bit of the energy and the love. There is still the old-fashioned tub in the backyard where they used to bathe outdoors. This house was built in 1908, and this is where they collected the first dues for the UNIA in this city. This home had the first telephone, which numerous people from the community would come here to use the telephone. And it had one of the first modern bathrooms and that type of thing. So this is definitely a historical site. It is listed in Jacksonville's documentation as one of those historical sites, although it's not a placard or anything on it, but it is documented. And the address used to be 1744 Florida Avenue, which is where the princess was arrested and taken downtown and put in jail because the black ministers in this community were very furious with her because she refused to take tithes and offerings. She said God did not need our money, but Africa did. And so she told our people to save their money to go back home to build Africa and to stop giving it to the ministers. And so the ministers got very angry with her, and they filed a suit against her to get her deported back to Ghana. And they said that she lied to the people and told the people that the streets of Africa was paved with gold and that the houses were made of diamonds. And so she was arrested here on a Friday night at 9:30 p.m. at this exact location, and she was downtown overnight, and they thought that she wasn't going to be able to get out. But I mean to tell you, thousands of her followers shut Jacksonville down. They were on the rooftops, they were all in the street, until the city had to let her go for fear that they would not be able to operate. So she was released on Saturday night and able to give her sermon Sunday morning like she promised her children that she would do. And she told her children, her followers, she said, you know, your mother didn't come here to start a church. I just came here to give my program. And that's to love yourself and love Africa, and to start commerce with Africa, and to go back home. If you're gonna be Americans, then be African Americans, be Afro-Americans, have a dual citizenship. Don't forget your motherland. But your preachers and your leaders fight me at every cause. So I have to hide my program in a church. So she founded the Universal African League, she founded the African League and Commercial Church. And it was basically founded on the principle of business and commerce. I'm going to pass out a little documentation for you to keep so that you can have it for many years to come and share with your family, because it is a long lost kept secret of our people. There was many eucalyptus trees on this land, many camphor trees on this land, but this whole backyard area here, she used to throw lots of functions. She loved to cook and feed the people of this community. She brought lots of diamonds, lots of gold, and purchased lots of land in this community. And this, of course, I use for my potting and for my gardening. But this was the tub that they bathed in. And there was a pipe, actually, when I first moved here, that you could turn on the water right here, literally. And it began to leak, and the owner decided to shut it off. But as I'm buying the home, I'll get that redone. But this is the land. This is where they had their parties, and they sang, and they brought in the energies of our ancestors right here on this land. And the reason why it was really hard to find and discover, of course, is because they hide everything. So originally this address was 1744. And so when I looked in the archives and found that she was arrested from a home on Florida Avenue at 1744, I couldn't find 1744. And so I had to keep digging and digging and digging, and then I found out that during the incorporation of the city, they changed the address to 1544. I was able to make the connections eventually. And so this is the sacred grounds of the first UNIA movement here in Jacksonville, Florida. This is where Mother is buried. She decided that she would not go back to Africa until all of her children came back to Africa with her. So upon her assassination, which we'll talk about later, her father knew that she had already told him, I'm going to die here. God told me that if I go back to Africa, it's death. If I stay here, it is death. But if I stay here and die doing the will of my Father, that I will come back again in the spirit and continue this fight. So bury me here until me and all my children come home. Ashe. 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 Oh. So we're gonna pilgrimage here as I'm gonna read what I've given you as we travel to the Old City Cemetery where Mother is buried, and then we'll go out to US 1 where she purchased land that is still available for us to build upon. It's just abandoned and desolate. No one knows it's there, and the city can't do nothing with it because she was so, her program, she said, God fixed me for this program, and this program is so wide that can't nobody go around it. It's so deep, can nobody go through it. So it's still there, and the city don't know what to do with it, because they can't do nothing with it until we ready to do something with it. Amen. Hotep, Ashe. All right. Ms. Johnson, lead the way. Slavery was not an event by just the African that was captured and then taken away. We were taught that this was an experience that every mother, father, sister, or brother of someone who had a loved one taken away into captivity. Moaning, tears, and prayers were offered not only by the slaves but also by many families and tribes in Africa. Their joint believing that their people would soon come home, but few did. It seemed as if the prayers of the old slave changed over the years. Blacks wanted to be free, but not to fellowship with Africa. There was some that had an interest in Africa, but they were soon told that there was nothing in Africa for them. God heard these rumblings and remembered the original prayers of the slaves and people in Africa. He then sent an African to America to tell the people they must remember their heritage, that Africa awaits a return of those that want to come home and a partnership of those that want to stay and pursue opportunities of trade. We're going to turn right. Known by her followers as Mother Kofi, was from the Gold Coast, now known as Ghana, West Africa. God called her out of Africa to come to the United States to see about black people and tell them what he wanted them to do. Continue down and you're going to turn left on Ionia. Did not want to come to America. She wanted to stay in her palm trees, being fanned with peacock feathers and drinking her coconut milk and mango juice. She was satisfied being a young housewife in Africa. By being a woman, she could not see herself facing the public and leading congregations of people in a foreign country. She felt that God could pick any number of young men and women in Africa who were more qualified and could speak English better than she could. But God desired no one but her to come to America and tell black people about their culture and spiritual riches in Africa. However, after visions and dreams, Mother Kofi accepted the call and came to America. She prepared for America, bringing the endorsement of chiefs, ministers, and leaders in Africa. They supplied her with documents, credentials, and power of attorney to represent them. Turn left. And then make immediate right. And then you're going to make a next right next street. She was also supplied with their products, raw materials, numerous gold and diamonds, and above all, she was given a message to them, to their people in America. It is a message she never failed to repeat in every single one of her public appearances. Your kings and leaders of Africa, who are your fathers, and your native people, who are your brothers and your sisters, have also given me a message to ask you. They say you have been a long time away from home. Why have you not made preparations to come home? They say if you want to come home, let us know. And if you don't want to come home, let us know. In the Gold Coast, now Ghana of Africa, there is a door to all of Africa open to you and a hearty welcome waiting for you there. This is Mother's Mausoleum that we will go to now. This is Mother's white mausoleum in front of you. And we will go around the other side to see her placard, which tells you exactly who she is and where she came from. And I bring her a plant about once a month, and I set it here in front of her mausoleum. Ashe, Ashe. Bless it, Mother. Bless it, bless it, bless it. Adoko Coffee arrived in the United States early in 1926. She first spoke in churches and then later linked with the then world-famous Universal Negro Improvement Association, the UNIA. With them, she was known as Madam Coffee and soon became one of the foremost national speakers of that organization and helped Mr. Honorable Messiah Marcus Garvey with his speeches. Laura Adoko taught that God was using her to tell us to learn about Africa as it is our motherland and to not be ashamed to be called Africans. She said we should partner with our brothers and sisters in Africa to trade machinery and tools for Africa's improvement. We should also send God-fearing, dedicated men and women who are skilled workers such as engineers, carpenters, bricklayers, machinists, icemen, and men and women trained in the professions to Africa. She encouraged us to be independent and stop relying on others to do everything for us. We should create our own jobs, build Negro enterprises among ourselves. For those of us that wanted to return to Africa, she encouraged us not to go into the towns that were already built up, but to go into the interior and help build up the old waste places the same way we had built up here in America. She always taught God and Jesus and told us that serving God was first and foremost of our people in Africa. And it was going to be redeemed. And that Jesus and God existed in Africa way before the white man distorted our truth. She knew that the preachers and other leaders did not like her doctrines. She professed her death and told her followers that when she died, God promised that he would send someone else to take up her work. Alabama, New Orleans, and Florida were among the states that she crusaded. Thousands flocked to her as she spoke. People were overjoyed by greetings from Africa. They declared that this was the first time they had ever heard such good news and glad tidings from their people in Africa. However, many of the black missionaries, preachers, and leaders during this time enjoyed a financial gain by telling the people that Africans were ignorant heathens and that they needed civilizing. Against this background, Adoko courageously enlightened her misinformed audiences. She was most successful in impressing upon amazed listeners that contrary to what they have been made to believe, it is the natives who in many countries of Africa do own and control their own land. Since they own and control their own lands, it is the natives themselves who carried on the industries and commerce of their own countries, selling their raw materials to the markets of the world and in turn buying all kinds of manufactured goods. She told them of cities operated and managed by African people, many of them with very modern conveniences, of black mayors, city authorities, houses of legislature, natural rulers, kings and queens and leaders. This type of speaking was very disruptive during this time. Preachers and leaders of organizations became concerned about her mass following and their following declining. Why would they follow them when they can follow the princess? The people began to question what they had been originally being told by their leaders. She became the subject of heated discussions and numerous ministerial alliances that were formed to take her out by all costs. Leaders started launching bitter campaigns against her from pulpits, newspaper articles, and public notices. They called her liars, imposters, said she didn't come from Africa, said she wasn't no princess, that she was telling lies, and that there is no part of Africa where Negroes could go and be welcomed except Liberia. Negroes haven't lost nothing in Africa, they said. Negroes must think white, not black. Churches even threatened to expel members from their congregation if they even was associated or mentioned that lying woman. But the more they fought her, the more people flocked to her meetings and joined her. It was her original desire to work through the churches and leaders to get her message out. But she soon realized that they were not interested in her message. As a result, she had to found her own church organization and solicited members at her meetings. Leaders against her tried many tactics to have her deported. As I mentioned earlier, she was arrested at the house that we just left. She was put in jail and appeared in criminal court proceedings here in Duval County because of her charges such as lying to the people. These charges were unfounded and she was discharged on all counts. And I give you a quote that the judge presiding here in Duval County said, "Mother, if you can do more with these Negroes than we've been able to do in the last 400 years, I bid you good luck." And he released her. But tragically, on the night of March 8th, 1928, in Miami, Florida, around 9 p.m., a bullet aimed from a crack in a door fatally pierced her in the head, taking her precious life. Multiple funerals were held. 7,000 followed the funeral procession from Miami to the city of West Palm Beach. 66 miles, another funeral service was held. Another 50 miles, another funeral procession was held. Her body was transported by undertaker coach, accompanied by motorcade to the city of Jacksonville. Over 10,000 attended her final funeral exercises held at the Duval County Old City Cemetery, right where we stand today. On August 17, 1928. Although she died, her teachings live on, and we believe many that heard her went on to speak and encourage African awareness everywhere, including abroad. Today, we no longer want to be called colored or Negro. Black has now become the accepted term. African American is fast approaching as even more prefer that term. We are praying large sums of money to trace our family roots back to Africa. Additionally, we now claim that our positive contributions to America is because of our African ancestry. To take her teachings on to the next phase, we now strive for an America and Africa that advocate African American enterprises that are equal to no other race. And I will tell you that we now have adopted the term Abia, Africans born in another place. Abias all over the globe. Africans born in another place outside of the continent. You know, if you were a kitten, a cat, and you were pregnant with kittens, and somebody put you in the oven, and you had your kittens in that oven, would they call your kitten biscuits? Or would they call your kittens an oven? You are still going to be called kittens because you are still cats. So as Africans, no matter where we are born, if we're born at sea, if we're born on land, no matter where we are born throughout this universe, we are still Africans born in another place. We are Abia. Okay? And you know, before leaving the cemetery, I would like to point out to you that this princess was laid away in fine style. And this mausoleum was built by the hands of her followers in that time. She was wrapped mummy fashion in silk robes of red, black, and green. This mausoleum costing several thousands of dollars in that time was paid for by her great followers. I would also like to point out to you that in the very last article that was written in February 12th, 2005, which I have given you a copy of, it talks about how following the massive funerals with thousands of mourners in Miami, West Palm Beach, Coffey's body was transported here to Jacksonville to be displayed by Hoff's funeral home at Pearl and State Streets. While awaiting burial direction from her family in Ghana, which did not arrive until summer, Hoff displayed the body for $1 to 75 cents to 50 cents to 25 cents all the way down to a nickel, and paid, well, charged our people who paid to see their African queen, their African princess lay in that casket, in a glass casket, for 5 months. Her body never deteriorated. Every night they used to take her body back and clean the frost that was above her face. She had been shot in the head and was brain dead, but she yet was alive. And she continued to breathe for 5 months until all the life was eventually gone. And at that moment in time, they laid her to rest here 5 months after she was shot. Rest in peace, mother. Rest in peace. Every March 8th, there is a memorial for her assassination here, and there are still yet followers who come far and wide. The first year I happened to stumble upon it, there was about 50 people here. It has now dwindled down to maybe 5 or 10. March 8th, every year, remember the assassination of our princess, Mother Courtney. May her blood not be in vain, and may we remember from whence we have came. Hotep. Hotep.
Princess Laura Adorko Kofi, affectionately known as Mother Kofi, the modern African princess of Asofa, Ghana, Gold Coast, West Africa. Assassinated in the pulpit on March 8, 1928, Miami, Florida. Let not your heart be troubled. John 14:1. Founder of the African Universal Churches.
Thank you.
This is one of the only cemeteries that have a house on it. And from her death, there was one Jacksonville sheriff officer. I don't have his name in front of me, but he lived in that house and kept these grounds for over 50 years. Until he passed in early 2000, and they haven't been able to get anyone to take his place. No one wants to live on a cemetery, no matter how they fix up the package. But I do believe that the kings and queens of Africa must have paid the city to protect her mausoleum, because I've traveled far and wide and I've never seen a cemetery with a house on it. And I used to see his police car there all the time. And I spoke with him before he passed. And he said, I've been protecting the princess all my life. A white sheriff officer. And he lived there until he died about 8 or 9 years ago.
Follow his true nature. Serving the servants.
We shall just take a moment of silence a little bit as we ride. I know that was real heavy.
Yeah.
Is I will actually read from Mother's sayings, Mother's sacred closet prayers, and Mother's teachings. These were her words that she left for us in her documentation, so that you will remember her words from time to come. Maiden name of Mother, unattainable. Birthplace of Mother, Africa. Then there was an informant, whoever brought her body in. That's how you knew that these were her followers, because how would the informant have the same last name as her husband? The informant is somebody, Coffee, because they were Coffeeites, and they all changed their name to Coffee.
March 8th. What did you say about March 8th?
That was the day she was assassinated.
March 8th.
So date of death. Date of death, March 8th, 28. The nature of the death, killed by gunshot wound. Murder is what it says. WACPtv in the house, getting all of this documented to go throughout the land. For those of you who were not here, we yet love you enough to document this thing and put it in your hands for many, many years to come. Be able to get it out. And that was simply the love of your people, the love of yourself, the love of your blackness. Because we have left it abandoned for so long for lack of knowledge. The city of Jacksonville, Florida threatens to demolition a living African American community. This story is so unbelievable until it's not believable. Truth can be stranger than fiction, they say. Did you know there's an African community in Jacksonville, Florida called Adorkaville? This large acre property was founded by a free native South African in 1944. Adorkaville was named in honor of an African princess, Laura Adorko Coffee. You see the different names of her followers. Of Ghana, West Africa. Princess Coffee was assassinated in Miami, Florida, USA on March 8, 1928. In a custom-made mausoleum, she was placed in a steel casket with her body draped in silk linen, located in the old Duval Cemetery in Jacksonville, Florida. There's suspicion that others in high places wanted the property for themselves. If you will please continue to read, this suspicion will soon be clarified. If there was more time, additional proof could be obtained. However, the Jacksonville Municipal Code Compliance Division supervisor has advised the Adorkaville Restoration Group that they will only have 1 to 3 months before they demolition the buildings. They are on the demolition track. However, from past experiences, the ARG believe they have less time than what was stated, for they have made more than good on their threats by destroying other buildings on this property sooner than what was previously scheduled. All of this explains about all the properties that have been demolitioned over the years and how they eventually slowly are trying to take this land.
How many acres?
I have that documentation in there. Demolition of this church.
We're gonna have to take an appeal to keep it.
It is humbly requested that this story be printed so that at the very least enough pressure will be put on the Jacksonville Municipal Code Compliance Division to end the process of demolition against these precious structures, thereby granting more time for funds to be raised to save the community, and help or support in their battle will be greatly appreciated. And they give you an address here And you know, I have worked with the family. The original pastor that came from South Africa, Nimbolo, in 1944. He has 4 daughters. One of them, her name is Satatu, and she still lives way in the back in one of the last homes. And when I came here 10 years ago to help with this fight, they didn't want any help. They really didn't want any outsiders. They really didn't trust anyone. And so I very rarely came to the land because I felt a little bit of unwantedness, a little bit of tension. So I'm really happy that they have now reached out for help because, you know, a closed mouth can't get fed. So when I came, they weren't ready for help, and I'm not upset about that. But at this point, they have now asked for our help in saving this community. And from my research, the only thing that's required for you to go to Home Depot or Lowe's or your local lumber yard and buy some bricks and some mortar and some lumber and build you a house on this land is for this church to be here and someone to be teaching about Africa.
How many houses was on the land? And
if no one is here at this church speaking and teaching about Africa, this community cannot be built according to the bylaws. So once they tear this church down, that's it. According to the law, when this land was purchased, this community has to be surrounded by an Afrocentric teaching church, period.
how many houses was on the land?
There was over 50 structures at one time, including 2-story apartment buildings, duplexes, and the like, all the way back as far as you can see. This is Adokaville, 5625 Dabula Drive, Jacksonville, Florida, 32219. They tried to make this a historical site, but all the black churches in this area fought it. Philippians fought it. There's another church over here that fought it. And because when you make a historical site, you have to get permission from certain block radius, and they would not give permission. Doctor over at Shands Hospital.
What's her name again?
See, Tatu. What is their last name? I can't think of their last name. Their other sister, Pico. See, Tatu. See, Tatu might still be here. I see a mailbox. Yep, see Tatu back here hiding. I don't know if she's home, but she hides back here. I've spoken with her numerous times.
This was her home?
This was her home. She's never here. I will knock. Maybe she'll be here today. There's another one over there that's getting ready to be torn down, all the way over there in the corner. But this goes back a little bit further, but it's been overgrown. We'll stop here. Tatu, are you home? Tatu? Of the minister that came from South Africa after Mother was assassinated. He was the first minister on this land to build and take up Mother's office. And he was the last. He preached and taught there for 40 years or so before he died. And this is his last daughter's home. She's a workaholic. She works at Shands Hospital. She's never home.
This is where she lives.
And she don't drive. She walks to the bus stop and catches the bus to work. So that's why you don't see no car tracks.
Princess Laura Adorko Kofi, affectionately known as Mother Kofi, the martyred African princess of Asofa, Ghana, Gold Coast, West Africa. Assassinated in the pulpit on March 8, 1928, Miami, Florida. Let not your heart be troubled. John 14:1. Founder of the African Universal Churches.
Thank you.